Matthew Collins took a deep breath as he stood before the towering doors of the Galactic Council chambers. His blue formal suit felt tight around his neck, matching the tension in his shoulders. For 6 years, he had served as Earth's ambassador to this ancient body of alien species. Today might be his last. "Are you sure about this, sir?" Lisa Warren whispered beside him. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, her expression concerned. "More sure than I've ever been," Matthew replied. "They need to understand that humans aren't just the new kids they can push around anymore." The massive doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the council chamber stretched upward in a vast dome. Representatives from 52 species sat in tiered seating, their diverse forms illuminated by the soft blue light from the ceiling. Most had been spacefaring when humans were still figuring out fire. The Arbiter, a tall, thin being with gray skin and 4 arms, gestured to the small podium in the center. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Collins of Earth. You may now present your species' concerns." Matthew walked forward, feeling the weight of hundreds of alien eyes. Some curious, most dismissive. He had prepared a speech, but suddenly those carefully chosen words felt hollow. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," he began, "for the 6th time, I come before you with evidence of the Void Collective's expansion at the edge of the Orion Arm. For the 6th time, I bring sensor readings, witness accounts, and attack patterns that show they are preparing for a major offensive." This Qatari representative, an insect-like being, waved a limb dismissively. "We have reviewed your data. It is incomplete and shows your limited understanding of spatial dynamics." "Our understanding may be limited by your standards," Matthew replied, working to keep his voice level. "But our colonies are the ones being attacked while this council debates." "Humans always rush to see aggression," hummed the representative from the ancient Morith collective, their translucent body pulsing with colored light. "The void species simply exist differently than we do. What you see as attacks may simply be their method of communication." Matthew felt heat rising in his face. "Communication. They destroyed our research station at Europa Prime. 300 people died." "A regrettable incident," the Arbiter said softly, "but one that could have been avoided if your species had followed Council settlement protocols that have worked for millennia." The familiar frustration bubbled up inside Matthew. He looked around the chamber, at the faces of beings who had watched countless species rise and fall. To them, humans were just another young race, barely worth notice. "The protocols aren't working," Matthew said firmly. "While we debate, the void advances. Earth will defend its people with or without Council support." The chamber filled with murmuring. The Arbiter's secondary eyes blinked in surprise. "That would be unwise," warned the Drell representative, a massive being who rarely spoke. "Individual species actions disrupt the harmony of." "Harmony." Matthew's voice echoed through the chamber, louder than he intended. "There is no harmony when some voices are ignored. There is no council when decisions always favor the oldest members." He reached into his jacket and removed a small data crystal, holding it up so all could see. "By authority of Earth's unified government, I hereby formally withdraw humanity from the Galactic Council, effective immediately." The chamber erupted. Some representatives stood, others shouted in their native languages. The Arbiter's voice cut through the chaos, demanding order. Lisa approached with a portable terminal, her hands slightly shaking. Matthew inserted the crystal, authorized with his thumbprint, and transmitted the official withdrawal documents. "No species has ever voluntarily left the Council in 12,000 years," the Arbiter said, genuine shock in their voice. "Then perhaps it's time someone did," Matthew replied, turning to leave. As he and Lisa walked out, the chamber behind them was in complete disorder. In the corridor, Lisa looked at him with wide eyes. "What happens now?" she asked. Matthew straightened his shoulders and looked ahead. "Now we prepare, because when the void comes, we'll be on our own." News of Earth's departure from the Galactic Council spread across the stars faster than any ship could travel, on colonies and space stations throughout human territory. Citizens watched their screens with a mixture of pride and fear. Admiral Catherine Reeves stood on the bridge of the flagship Valiant, watching as her fleet ran combat drills near Jupiter's orbit. At 53, with steel-gray hair cut short and a face lined by decades of service, she had never expected to prepare for potential war with former allies. "Status report," she ordered, hands clasped behind her back. Lieutenant Paul Donovan looked up from his console. "All ships report ready, Admiral. Defense grid is at 97% efficiency." Catherine nodded. "The Akrelians have moved 3 battle groups to our border in the last 12 hours. I want everyone ready if they decide to test us." On the other side of human space, the situation was already deteriorating. Daniel Morgan unloaded cargo from his small merchant vessel at Nexus Station, a massive trading hub where species from across the galaxy conducted business. For 8 years, he had made a good living running supplies along this route. Today was different. The station security, staffed mostly by Dracovians, had held his ship for additional inspection. For 6 hours. Now the dock manager, a blue-skinned Palaxian, scanned his manifest with obvious disdain. "Your docking fee has increased," the manager said coldly. "Increased? Why?" Daniel asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "I paid the standard rate last week." "New fees for non-council species," the Palaxian replied with a thin smile. "Take it or leave." Daniel bit back his anger and transferred the credits. He couldn't afford to lose this stop on his route, even with the extortion. As he walked through the station's main marketplace, he noticed how other traders moved away from him, how conversations stopped when he approached. A lifetime of acceptance shattered in a day. Meanwhile, in a private chamber on a small moon orbiting a forgotten star, Matthew Collins met with representatives from 5 species who had secretly reached out after Earth's departure. The room was secure, swept for listening devices, with only the soft hum of air recyclers breaking the silence. What Ambassador Collins did was unexpected, said Teller, his reptilian features impassive despite the warmth in his words. But not unwelcome. "The council has grown stagnant," added Kira Nail, her translucent skin glowing faintly in the dim light. "The Elari were one of the younger council species, admitted only 2 centuries ago. Many of us have been silenced, just as humans were." Matthew studied each face carefully. "Earth didn't leave to start a rebellion. Yet you may have started one regardless," Teller responded. "The Tellerate Alliance has suffered under council trade restrictions for generations. Others have similar grievances. What are you proposing?" Matthew asked. "An alliance," Kira said simply. "Not to replace the council, but to protect our mutual interests while they pretend the void isn't coming." Back on Earth, Lisa Warren hurried through the corridors of the Defense Ministry, data tablet clutched to her chest. Junior staffers moved out of her way as she approached Matthew's new office. Without knocking, she pushed through the door. "Sir, we have confirmation," she said, slightly out of breath. "The Void Collective has launched 3 major attacks on outer council worlds in the Sagittarius Arm." Matthew looked up from his desk, face grim. Casualties. Thousands, at least. Council forces were completely unprepared. And the Council's response? Lisa's expression hardened. "They've issued a statement blaming Earth's departure for destabilizing regional security." Matthew stood and walked to the window overlooking Washington. The evening sky was clear, stars just becoming visible. Somewhere out there, people were dying while the Council played politics. "Contact Admiral Reeves," he said quietly. "It's time to activate our defensive protocols." "Sir," Lisa hesitated. "The Council has explicitly warned that any unilateral human military action will be considered an act of aggression." Matthew turned, his eyes reflecting the determination that had led him to walk out of the Council chambers. "They can add it to our list of crimes," he said. "We won't sit by and watch the void consume the galaxy." 6 months after Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the predictions that Matthew Collins had desperately tried to warn about came true. The Void Collective launched a massive offensive that caught the Council completely unprepared. Admiral Catherine Reeves stood in the war room of Earth Defense Headquarters, watching the holographic display as red markers spread across the map of Council space. Each marker represented a system under attack, and there were dozens. "They're not just raiding anymore," she said grimly. "This is a full invasion." General Alan Foster nodded beside her. "The Council's defense strategy is falling apart. Their ships are too spread out, and they're sticking to traditional formation tactics. The Void doesn't fight traditionally," Catherine muttered. She pointed to a cluster of markers near human territory. New Montana colony is directly in their path. If the Council line breaks there, it will, Alan said flatly. Their ships are already pulling back. Catherine tapped her comm badge. "Prepare the 3rd and 5th fleets for immediate deployment to the New Montana system." A young officer looked up nervously. "Admiral, we've received another warning from the Council. They insist that human military forces must remain within our recognized boundaries." Catherine's eyes flashed with anger. "Tell them that I recognize the boundaries of human lives needing protection. That's all." Across the galaxy, on the research station Galileo, Dr. Olivia Garcia had barely slept in 3 days. Her lab was cluttered with holographic projections and sample containers. Coffee cups littered her desk as she analyzed the latest data from Void Collective encounters. "Play that sensor reading again," she told her assistant, Kevin Barnes. The hologram showed a Void ship taking heavy damage, then seemingly communicating with nearby vessels that immediately adjusted their attack patterns. "There," Olivia pointed. "That energy pulse. It's not random. It's a communication method." Kevin leaned closer. "Some kind of hive mind." "Not exactly," Olivia said, excitement building in her voice. "More like a network with specific nodes. Look at the energy signature when this ship is destroyed." The recording showed a momentary disruption in the formation of nearby Void ships. "They're connected, but hierarchical," Olivia continued. "Destroy the right ships, and you disrupt their entire battle coordination." Kevin looked at her with wide eyes. "You've found their weakness." "Maybe," she cautioned, "but I need more data to confirm the pattern." On the colony world of New Montana, panic gripped the population of 800,000 settlers. Emergency evacuation protocols had been activated, but there weren't enough ships to move everyone to safety. Commander Ryan Bennett of Earth's Marine Corps directed defense preparations from the colony's main settlement. His teams were setting up shield generators and weapon emplacements around evacuation centers. "We need at least 3 more days to get everyone out," he reported to Admiral Reeves over the secure channel. "You'll have them," Catherine promised. "The fleet will arrive in 18 hours. Hold your position until then." Ryan watched the sky, knowing that somewhere up there, Void ships were approaching. "Yes, ma'am. We'll hold." Back on Earth, Matthew Collins received an unexpected visitor in his office. The arbiter of the Galactic Council, arriving in person rather than through the usual holographic channels, stood awkwardly in the human-sized room. "This is unprecedented," Matthew said, gesturing for the 4-armed being to sit. "As is much that has happened recently," the arbiter replied, folding into the chair. "The Council has sent me to formally request Earth's assistance against the Void Collective." Matthew raised an eyebrow. 6 months ago, you dismissed our warnings as primitive understanding." 6 months ago, we were wrong," the arbiter admitted, 2 of his 4 hands clasped together. "The collective strategy matches your predictions with disturbing accuracy. Our fleets are already moving to defend our colonies," Matthew said. "We know. And we are asking you to extend that protection to Council worlds." Matthew leaned forward. "At what cost? Will Earth have a voice this time?" The arbiter's secondary eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of discomfort. "Some on the Council resist change, even now. But others recognize that survival requires adaptation." Matthew stood and walked to the window. Outside, the lights of Washington glittered under the night sky. "I'll bring your request to our government," he said finally. "But understand this, if we help, It won't be as subordinates returning to the fold. It will be as equals, offering aid to those who need it. The arbiter rose. Perhaps that is how it always should have been. Earth's Grand Conference Hall had never hosted such a diverse gathering. Representatives from 7 formerly Council-loyal species sat around a circular table, their environmental needs accommodated by specialized fields and atmospheres. Matthew Collins stood at the head of the table, with Admiral Reeves and Dr. Olivia Garcia flanking him. "Thank you for coming despite the risks," Matthew began. "Each of you represents species that have expressed willingness to work outside official council channels." Teller, the reptilian representative, nodded his scaled head. "The council rejected our request to implement Dr. Garcia's defense strategies. They called them untested and reckless. While they continue to lose systems," added Kira Nail of the Elari, her translucent skin flickering with agitation. Admiral Reeves stepped forward. "Dr. Garcia's research suggests that void ships operate on a network principle. Their command structure can be disrupted if we target specific vessels." Olivia tapped her tablet, bringing up a holographic display showing void ship formations. "These larger vessels here emit a particular energy signature. Our analysis suggests they coordinate smaller attack groups. Neutralize them, and the swarm becomes disorganized." "How certain are you of this theory?" asked Vril, a methane-breathing representative whose containment suit hummed softly. 87% confident, Olivia replied. "But we need a field test. Which is why we've called this meeting," Matthew explained. "Earth is proposing a joint task force to implement these strategies, outside council oversight." The room fell silent as the representatives considered the implications. Working outside the council was unprecedented for most species. "My government will provide ships," Teller said finally. "The council's inaction has cost us 3 colonies already." One by one, the others agreed, though some with reservations. 2 weeks later, Commander Ryan Bennett stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Defender, overseeing a mixed fleet of 23 ships from 6 different species. His task force had been drilling together, overcoming language barriers and different tactical doctrines. "All ships report ready, Commander," said his first officer, Susan Chen. Ryan nodded, studying the tactical display. The colony of New Montana lay behind them, its defense systems fully operational after Earth's engineers had worked around the clock. Ahead, long-range sensors detected void ships approaching. "This will be the first real test of Dr. Garcia's theory," Ryan said. "Remind all captains, priority targets are the command vessels. Everything else is secondary." As the void ships entered the system, the Allied fleet held position, a strategy that puzzled the veteran officers from more traditional species. "Should we not intercept them at the boundary?" asked Captain Zervin of the Tellerite vessel. "No," Ryan replied firmly. "We let them commit to their approach vector. Dr. Garcia's analysis shows their command ships typically hold position behind the main force." The gamble paid off. As the Void advanced with their usual overwhelming numbers, their formation revealed the larger vessels coordinating the attack. Ryan's fleet launched a precisely targeted offensive, bypassing the front line entirely and striking deep into their formation. "Target locked on Command Vessel Alpha," Susan reported. "Firing solution ready. All ships, execute primary attack pattern now," Ryan ordered. The Allied fleet struck as one, focusing overwhelming firepower on the Void command ships. As the first one exploded in a burst of strange energy, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Nearby Void ships began to move erratically, their coordinated attack falling into disarray. "It's working," Susan exclaimed, watching as the pattern repeated across the battlefield. For the first time since the Void Collective had emerged from the dark regions beyond known space, they were being driven back. On the Galactic Council's capital world, news of the victory spread quickly. Council hardliners were meeting in emergency session, their faces grim as they viewed the battle records. "This is deeply concerning," said the Morith representative, body pulsing with agitated colors. "Humans have formed a military alliance outside our authority. More concerning is that they succeeded where we failed, replied another member. They claimed this was simply a defensive action. The arbiter noted. A convenient claim, sniffed the Skitarii representative. What they have done is leverage this crisis to gather influence and power. This void threat may even be their creation. The arbiter's four hands moved in a gesture of disagreement. The evidence does not support such a theory. Evidence can be manufactured. The Skitarii insisted. What cannot be disputed is that Earth now leads a growing coalition of species that no longer respect council authority. This cannot be allowed to continue. Outside the chamber, word of the Alliance's success continued to spread, and with it, whispers of hope that perhaps there was another way. A path forward that didn't require waiting for the Council's cautious deliberation while worlds burned. The Galactic Council's capital world of Harmonium had never known war. For 12,000 years, it had served as the center of interstellar governance, its gleaming spires and vast gardens representing the pinnacle of civilized cooperation. Today, those spires were burning. The Void Collective's attack had come without warning, bypassing the Council's vaunted defense network as if it barely existed. Hundreds of void ships darkened the skies above the capital city, their strange energy weapons cutting through buildings and shields alike. In the council chambers, panic reigned. Representatives from 52 species crowded together, many abandoning the dignity and protocol that normally governed their proceedings. How could they reach us here? Cried the Morith representative, their translucent body flashing with colors of distress. The arbiter stood at the center, trying to maintain order. Emergency protocols are active. Evacuation ships are being prepared. There aren't enough ships for everyone. The Skitarii representative chittered. Who decides who leaves? Before the argument could escalate further, the massive doors to the chamber burst open. A squad of soldiers in black armor entered, led by a woman with a determined expression. The insignia on their shoulders showed Earth's flag. "I'm Captain Nicole Foster, Earth Marine Corps," she announced, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We have evacuation vessels standing by. Please follow my team in an orderly fashion." The council members stared in shock. "Earth? Here?" the arbiter asked. "How?" Questions later, Nicole replied firmly. "The Void has landed ground forces in the southern quadrant. We need to move now." Above the planet, Admiral Catherine Reeves directed the battle from the bridge of the Valiant. Her fleet, combined with ships from Teller, the Alari, and 3 other allied species, engaged the Void forces in a desperate attempt to buy time for the evacuation. "Status on the Council evacuation?" she asked, eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Captain Foster reports they're moving to the extraction point now," her communications officer replied. "Estimated 15 minutes to pick up." Catherine nodded grimly. "Bring up Battle Group 3 to cover their exit vector. We need to keep that corridor clear." Commander Ryan Bennett's voice came through the comms. "Admiral, we've identified 3 Void command ships coordinating this attack. If we can take them out simultaneously, it should disrupt their entire assault pattern. That would require splitting our forces dangerously thin," Catherine noted. "It's our best chance," Ryan insisted. "Dr. Garcia's model gives it a 76% probability of success." Catherine considered for only a moment. "Do it, but get our people off that planet first." On the surface, Nicole Foster led the council representatives through the burning city. Buildings collapsed around them as Void ground forces drew closer. The arbiter struggled to keep pace, his 4-limbed body not designed for running. "Why would Earth come to our aid?" he asked between labored breaths. "After how the council treated you." Nicole didn't slow her pace, "because it's the right thing to do. That's something humans understand, even when politicians don't." A Void attack craft appeared overhead, its weapons charging. Before it could fire, it exploded in a ball of flame. A human fighter screamed past, followed by 2 more. "Our escorts have arrived," Nicole announced. "The landing zone is just ahead." As they reached the clearing, 3 large transport ships waited, their ramps down and engines running. Earth Marines created a defensive perimeter, exchanging fire with approaching void forces. Get them aboard now. Nickel ordered her team. Priority to the injured. The council representatives filed onto the transports, many still in shock at being rescued by the very species they had dismissed months earlier. The Arbiter was the last aboard. He paused at the ramp, turning to Nickel. "Captain Foster, I must ask, why would Earth risk so much for us?" Nickel checked her weapon, preparing to cover the final retreat. "Ambassador Collins said you might ask that. He told me to tell you that humanity doesn't abandon others to the dark, even those who didn't believe us about what lurks there." In orbit, Catherine's gamble paid off. Ryan's strike teams successfully destroyed all 3 Void command vessels simultaneously, causing the remainder of the Collective's fleet to fall into disarray. Taking advantage of the confusion, Earth and Allied ships carved a path through the enemy formation. "Evacuation transports have cleared the atmosphere," the tactical officer reported. "All council representatives secured." Catherine allowed herself a small smile. "Signal all ships. Fall back to Rally Point Alpha. We've done what we came to do." As the Allied fleet jumped to safety, carrying the leadership of the Galactic Council away from their fallen capital, something shifted in the balance of power. The oldest and most established government in the galaxy had been saved by its youngest, most rebellious former member. The Council would never be the same again. The temporary headquarters of the displaced Galactic Council looked nothing like the majestic chambers they had occupied for millennia. Set up in an Earth colony's administrative building on New Montana, the meeting room was utilitarian and plain. Yet it was here that the future of galactic governance would be decided. Matthew Collins stood before the assembled representatives, who sat in simple chairs rather than their customary ornate thrones. The Arbiter occupied a position no longer elevated above the others, a symbolic change that hadn't gone unnoticed. "The fall of Harmonium marks the end of an era," Matthew began. "The council structure that has governed for 12,000 years proved unable to adapt to the void threat." Murmurs rippled through the room. Some representatives nodded in agreement, while others looked offended. "With respect, Ambassador Collins," the Skiteri representative chittered, "this crisis does not erase 12 millennia of successful governance." "Successful for whom?" asked Teller, rising from his seat. "The elder species have always benefited most from council decisions. Younger races like the Tellarites and humans were expected to follow without question." The Arbiter raised 2 of his 4 hands for calm. "What do you propose, Ambassador Collins?" Matthew activated a holographic display showing a different organizational structure. "Earth and our allies proposed the formation of the new Galactic Alliance. Unlike the Council, all member species would have equal standing regardless of their technological development or how long they've been spacefaring." The display showed interconnected nodes rather than the Council's traditional hierarchical pyramid. Decisions would require actual consensus, not merely the approval of the eldest members, Matthew continued. Defense and scientific advancement would be collaborative rather than regulated. The room erupted into overlapping conversations. The Morith representative's body pulsed with colors of agitation. "This is outrageous. You propose to dismantle thousands of years of tradition because of one crisis." Admiral Catherine Reeves, standing beside Matthew, stepped forward. "With respect, this one crisis has already claimed billions of lives and dozens of worlds, including your capital. And it continues while we debate." She activated another display, showing the current positions of Void collective forces across the galaxy. "Our combined fleets have had success using Dr. Garcia's targeting strategies, but the Void adapts quickly. We need a unified response, not one hampered by layers of protocol and tradition." In the days that followed, the debate continued. Some council species refused to consider the new arrangement, clinging to their ancient privileges. Others, particularly those whose worlds lay in the Void's path, were more receptive. Kira Nail of the Elari worked tirelessly alongside Matthew, meeting with representatives individually and addressing their concerns. Her skills as a diplomat proved invaluable, as she built support for the Alliance concept. The Pelian Confederacy has agreed to join, she reported to Matthew in his office one evening. That makes 17 species now, including 4 former Council senior members. Matthew nodded, looking tired but satisfied. And the holdouts? The Skiteri and Morith still refuse. They've withdrawn to their core systems and are attempting to reconstitute the traditional Council structure, without the resources or influence they once had, Matthew noted. Yes, most species see which way the wind is blowing. Kira's translucent skin glowed faintly in the dim light. They know that Earth and its allies are the only ones effectively fighting the void. On the front lines, the newly formed Alliance Defense Force was putting theory into practice. Commander Ryan Bennett now led a truly integrated fleet, with ships from 19 species fighting together against the Void Collective. All vessels, execute Pattern Gamma 6, he ordered from the bridge of his flagship. The mixed fleet responded as one, executing the complex maneuver that targeted the Void's command structure. Ryan had spent weeks training the combined forces to work together, overcoming differences in tactics and technology. What emerged was something new, neither human nor alien, but a blend that incorporated the strengths of each. Back on Earth, the government had just completed a formal vote to ratify the new Alliance Charter. Matthew received the news as he prepared for another negotiation session. It's official, Lisa Warren told him, handing him the confirmation. Earth is now a founding member of the new Galactic Alliance. Matthew smiled tiredly. 6 months ago, we were outcasts for daring to question the Council's wisdom. Now we're helping write the rules for what comes next. Is that what you wanted all along? Lisa asked curiously. Matthew shook his head. What I wanted was for someone to listen before it was too late. Instead, we had to create a new way for species to talk to each other. He looked at the charter in his hands. Maybe that's for the best. Throughout the galaxy, beings who had lived their entire lives under the Council's governance watched with uncertainty as a new order took shape, one led not by the oldest and most established species, but by the young, adaptable humans who had dared to walk away. 1 year after Earth's dramatic departure from the Galactic Council, the new Alliance fleet gathered for what many hoped would be the final offensive against the Void Collective. Over 300 ships from 26 species formed the largest united force the galaxy had ever seen. Admiral Catherine Reeves stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned flagship Unity, a vessel that represented the combined technological achievements of multiple worlds. Around her, crew members from a dozen species worked at their stations, their differences forgotten in their common purpose. All battle groups report ready, Admiral, said her first officer, a Tellarite named Voss. Catherine nodded. Begin the jump sequence. Let's finish this. The massive fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel, bound for the region now identified as the Void Collective's home territory. Dr. Olivia Garcia's research had finally pinpointed the location after months of analyzing energy patterns and communication signals. On the command deck of the assault carrier Defiance, Commander Ryan Bennett briefed the mixed species strike teams that would lead the ground assault if needed. Marine Captain Nicole Foster stood at his side, her battle armor bearing the scars of a dozen engagements with Void forces. Intelligence suggests the collective is coordinated from a central nexus, Ryan explained, pointing to the holographic display. Our primary objective is to secure this facility intact if possible. And if not possible? Asked a Drell soldier, his gravelly voice conveying his skepticism. Nicole answered directly. Then we make sure nothing remains for them to rebuild. The fleet emerged from jump space to find the Void forces waiting for them. Hundreds of the strange, asymmetrical vessels formed a defensive perimeter around a small dark planet. They knew we were coming. Catherine said grimly as her tactical display lit up with enemy positions. The battle that followed would later be recorded as the most significant engagement in modern galactic history. For 6 hours, the new alliance fought against the seemingly endless void ships, implementing the strategies that had proven successful in previous encounters. Ryan's strike team made landfall on the void homeworld amid heavy resistance. Fighting through the strange, shifting architecture of the Void City, they pushed toward the central structure that Dr. Garcia had identified as the primary control nexus. "This technology is like nothing I've ever seen," Nickel reported as her team secured a perimeter. "It's almost organic." Garcia's theory suggests it might actually be both mechanical and biological, Ryan replied through the comm. "Hold position until my team reaches the central chamber." In orbit, Catherine's fleet had gained the upper hand. The Void's command structure, so effectively targeted by Alliance tactics, began to collapse. Ship after ship fell into disarray as their coordination failed. "We're detecting a massive energy buildup on the planet," her sensor officer reported. "It appears they're attempting some kind of last resort weapon." Catherine made a quick decision. "All ships, focus fire on these coordinates. We need to buy the ground team more time." On the surface, Ryan and Nickel's teams finally breached the central chamber of the Void Nexus. What they found inside shocked even veteran soldiers. A massive, pulsating entity filled the chamber, connected to the structure around it by countless tendrils of energy and matter. "This isn't a control room," Nickel whispered. "It's alive." The entity seemed to sense their presence, turning what appeared to be sensory organs toward them. To everyone's surprise, it began to communicate, not in words, but in concepts and images projected directly into their minds. Fear, survival, expansion. The concepts came rapidly, painting a picture of a species that had fled some greater terror from beyond the galaxy's edge, seeking new territory out of desperation rather than conquest. Back on the New Alliance headquarters on New Montana, Matthew Collins received the unexpected transmission from Commander Bennett. "They're trying to communicate, sir," Ryan's voice came through, filled with astonishment. "The Void Collective isn't an invasion force. They're refugees." Within hours, Matthew was on his way to the Void homeworld aboard the fastest available ship. Upon arrival, he entered the Nexus chamber where Ryan and Nickel had established a primitive form of communication with the Void entity. "Can you understand why we fought back?" Matthew asked it, focusing his thoughts as Ryan had instructed. The reply came as a flood of images: misunderstanding, regret, fear of extinction.